interesting, when you started to play, I was going to open my water bottle because I was a bit thirsty, but by the beginning of the second bar, I thought, no, I'm just going to listen because this is so beautiful and you play it with such feeling and honesty, and it's great, beautiful playing. I think some of the characterization, though, can be a little bit more. I mean, this is the blessing of God in the solitude, but this is a man who had very strong religious feelings, but also lots of doubts and difficulties. And I think we have to make sure that we have enough of the theatre as well as the convent in Liszt. It can never be totally chaste, if you like. There's always something human and failing, and I think I think almost your vision is almost a little bit too pure in some ways. And I think some of it's sound. When you get to this, it seems to be a rather more human moment. I want the sound to be a little bit more cantabile, you know, more insistent kind of sound. Whereas this is the convent. The nuns picking the apples off the trees. You know, there's something very bucolic about it. And I think yours is a little bit serious. I think it's a bit kinder. Does that make sense, this section? I think yours is a little bit severe, actually, in a way. I think this is not a human moment, I think, in a way. It's gentle, it's sort of nice, it's pleasant, the sun, it's in Italy somewhere and the sun's shining and you know, the cattle are in the next field. And, you know, there's something very gentle about it. And also, I think with the left hand, I think it should be the same rhythm. Sorry. So that this is actually matching those. Now, some little points. Pedaling, well, this is a huge topic. We spoke a little bit about different levels of pedaling, but if I talk about an agogic accent, it's something that if you listen to recordings of people up until the 50s, really, or 40s, you often get this, and it's a very characteristic thing of an older style, where when you want to go to something, you come away from it. So, for instance, Liszt writes an accent here, but I think instead of meaning, he actually means. Now, it survives in popular music. So if you listen to Frank Sinatra, he does agogic accents all over the place. Ella Fitzgerald, all of the great jazz musicians have kept that tradition. Because it's something to do with improvisation, to do with folk music. Listen to crazy folk musicians, always there. It's partly just, I think, that when you want to emphasize something, you don't always do it by doing it louder. Sometimes you come away. And I think this particular section, what I'm suggesting is that you pedal, just release the pedal after the note and come away. They would do a portamento slide about every third note. It's absolutely astonishing if you listen to recordings of violinists from the first 2 decades of the 20th century. I mean, literally every third note is slide, 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 slide. I mean, it's just unbelievable, because now maybe there are 3 slides in the whole recital, if you go to, and then you think that they think, oh, is this out of bad taste? So let's do that. The other thing is arpeggios. People arpeggiated chords all the time and broke between the hands until about 1951. I mean, it's very recent, this idea of playing chords like this. Czerny tells us Beethoven, when he played the 4th concerto, went... There's a whole section in his book on Beethoven about how he would do that. And listen to Bartók. Interesting. You think of Bartók as a rather modernist kind of voice in a way. When he played, listen to his recording of the Kreutzer Sonata. All the chords roll. It's extraordinary. So this is a stylistic thing we've lost. Now Liszt, of course, writes in roll chords here. But we don't have to do them exactly when he writes and only when he writes. So, for instance, you did, for instance, here you did this one as a solid chord and this one rolled. And feel free to roll, and not just in those big moments, but in our nuns section. I think these should be. Then 2 singers are never going to be rubato at exactly the same time. There's going to be a slight, and that's good, because there's an obsession today with playing together. You know, with chamber music, if you run through a chamber music piece with someone, if you're always together, they think it's therefore good. You know, that's the measure of playing good chamber music, is that you can follow a violinist. That if you play a chord and you're together, wow, he's a great musician, great chamber music. String quartets, if they play together, oh, you know, they're the best. You know, they're like one person. I'm not sure a string quartet should be like one person, actually. There are 4 fantastic personalities, and the voices will not always be together. You know, listen to some of, again, the great chamber musicians. I mean, Thibaut and Courteau playing things like the Greeks, I mean, they're never together. I mean, sometimes ridiculously so. You would say, well, let's do a retake there. But not always. And this is why when you're playing with yourself, you shouldn't be together always, because you're not just one person, you're playing counterpoint. So those are a few general points. Even with this theme, I mean, it was so beautiful.